Welcome everyone once again to the regular weekly live show on YouTube Spain. I'm Skatz, and today I'll be talking to my good friend and yours, residency specialist Chris from Upsticks.es, all about how to plan your move to Spain. We'll have top tips about visas and residency and travel and removals and much more. And just as important, we'll be answering all of your questions and comments from social media, from the live chat, from the comments below about today's topic. And there's always something exciting for you at the end of the show, so stick around for that too, and give us a thumbs up, please. If you're watching the recording of the show afterwards, you can find the time codes and chapter headings for each of the answers you need in the video description below. So, welcome to U2 Spain. Cue the music and let's dance. Oh yes, thanks once again to the very groovy and talented wizard of a musician, Lee Spreadbury, for that theme music. And you can find a link to his excellent YouTube channel below, where he plays a keyboard in various different places, in the middle of the trees with his hippie vibes. So, very quickly before I introduce my guests, here are some important messages that will only take a moment, and they're good for you. You can thank us for the help you get today by buying me a coffee via the link in the video description below, or you can become a regular patron and receive extra videos and information that aren't available to the public. Some good stuff coming up there. And those links, if you can't find them below, are also available on u2spain.com, which is our terrific website packed with loads of information and articles and all of the links you need to help you move to Spain. So join the community. It's good fun stuff there. And there's also very helpful links to where you can get discounts on things that you need. Yeah, bargains, including getting the best currency exchange help from Smart Currency Exchange, one of our wonderful partners. So you can maximise your spending money and pension in Spain safely. And if you use that link, you'll be helping U2 Spain and it won't cost you a penny. Which reminds me, I made a big announcement on social media yesterday. On Monday, I'm starting a new live show, this time very short and cute, just like me. It'll be at 1 p.m. in Spain. That's Spanish time on Mondays, which is lunchtime. So you can sit with me for a coffee and a chat while I tell you what's happening with the exchange rates in euros, pounds, dollars and more, and giving you advice on how to make the most of your cash. I'm calling it It's Your Money, and it's actually going to be lots of fun. So subscribe now, click on the bell so you get notified when it's happening. And of course, we'll be giving prizes away at the end of this show for the best questions and comments from you. So get talking on the live chat. And without further ado, let's meet my guest for the day. It's Chris from Upsticks. Hola, Chris.
Hola, good morning.
How are you doing down there on the coast? It's baking up here.
Yeah, it's very, very warm, very warm. Actually, so I'm doing a live from home today, and it's sit in the shade, definitely.
Very nice. Yeah, we've got I've got the sun blaring through the window in front of me in the office, so that's not good thing. So it's warming up. It's already nearly about 30 degrees in here. So.
Yes, it was quite funny. I was looking at the news, and I think there was an alert in the UK because it went over 30 degrees, didn't it, or something? Mm-hmm. And a friend of mine made a funny comment. He said in Spain, what they normally do is switch from using the normal glasses to the frozen ones in the bar when it gets to 30 degrees. You know,
brilliant. And that's but it's yeah, it is unusual though. It's been unusual for the temperatures for Spain, hasn't it? I've had special alerts going on.
Yeah, no, on the serious side, I mean, it's really, we were just saying the other day, because we sort of judge it by the school activities and stuff like that, you know, during the year. And it's certainly a lot warmer this year than we normally know it to be. You know, it seems that the July heat seems to have hit us in June, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, it's my first year, so I don't know any different, but I'm going by what everybody around me is saying. And yeah, it's very handy to have a pool that we can just leap into. Although I've been stuck in the office all week, so that's one of the things actually to prepare for when you move to Spain, and that is sometimes especially if you're working like me, and you've got to carry on working, and that is that it's not going to be like a holiday, not quite what you expect.
Work-life balance is a constant, you know, especially if you work for yourself, because when do you stop? And if you're working with people, there's always something to do, but you do have to balance it.
Yeah, it's true. And with this new show coming up on Monday, I've had to kind of do a lot of preparation for it, so that hopefully it won't take long each week to do it, but preparing for your first show like that is a tough one. You've just got to have all your what do you say? All your ducks in a row.
That's right, yeah.
Yeah. So, have you got any? Let's do the shout outs to start with. Let's just start with the live chat. Hello, Anthony and Kerry. Oh, they're due to be 40 degrees plus today in France. They're shuttered up and shut in with the aircon on. Morning, Steve Knowles. Jason from Jason's Web. Good morning. Morning, Yogi again. He says, hope you're doing well. He's got a question about typical costs we can expect when moving to Spain from the UK. We did a whole video about that actually recently, Yogi. It's worth you watching that one. And morning from Glyn James and Steve Southam or Southam. I never get that one right. And apologies to Alan McHaffey, who is not watching today, actually. He's actually in Spain, but I keep pronouncing his name Alan McHaffey. So I have to apologise when he watches this show back. Finally, I can get his name right. So any of your customers that you want to shout out to today?
Yeah, Joe, I think because I missed something from the last video, I just wanted to say a couple of people I've spoken to says, you mentioned Gary, didn't you? So there's Gary, speak to Gary, he's a client of ours now. Lindy, I spoke to yesterday. David and Sarah I spoke to yesterday, and they're getting ready now. They're going to find this video very interesting because they're right at the beginning of their journey. They'll have to say they've done very well with the paperwork so far on their own. So that's good. Kevin is now coming to Sado, so we've been doing quite a bit with the static homes around Andalusia, and people coming there and planning in that direction. So that's been quite good. Malcolm, who I spoke to this week as well, is coming to Benalmádena, and going to see him actually when he comes over. He's got a nice apartment in Bellagio, so I was like, no, I'll come to you. It's okay. I'm going to swim.
Very nice.
Dave from Canaries, spoke to him. Karen as well is coming up to Coin, spoke to her. And I know Ian, who I just wanted to give a shout out to Ian, who he's coming to Sevilla. He's going to Static Home in Sevilla, and I know he's watching because I just sent him the link now to watch it. And he got his visa this week, and he's been through an absolutely torrid time because he literally hit the strikes bang on.
Oh no.
So by the time we got to there, we got an appointment for him, but the paperwork had expired. But we managed to fight with Manchester to say, right, look, you have to accept this. We had a massive paperwork trail, and they turned around, they actually accepted it. They said, no, we will, because we can see that it wasn't his fault. And he's got his visa and he's on his way. So we're really happy with that one.
Excellent. Actually, let me put this question there. Albie Mayo said she was commenting on when we did the live news flash from the London Embassy, I think. Yeah. He says, I know this video is about a month old, but I was wondering if anyone knew if the Spanish consulate are replying to emails. This is London he's talking about. He's not got any reply, including an email for booking a visa appointment, starting an Erasmus placement. That's a student one, isn't it? At a Spanish university in September. And even doing things as early as possible seems like it will be problematic. So what's happening in London from your perspective?
They are replying. He'll need to send his request for an appointment to the correct email address, which I can give you after the show. But yeah, they're flying now. The good news is that we even had now Manchester, who was slow on the take up after the strikes, have updated their appointment booking the way they do it, and they're flying as well now. So we're more or less getting the dates. London as well is doing very well. I don't know if you saw this week, it was on a couple of things regarding the non-lucrative visa which have happened. Well, there's three things which I can comment now if everybody wants to know.
Yeah, it's important.
Regarding the non-lucrative visa this week. So the first thing was London have now said that they're going to post passports back. So that's actually great because that falls in line with Manchester and Edinburgh. The only thing is, there was actually a comment on a thread on your group where I said to somebody, look, take an envelope each to Edinburgh, and for the other two, you'll be fine with one per. Should we say if it's a joint application, i.e., a couple or family? The reason we say that is basically just for experience. We've had two couples now who've gone to Edinburgh. To be fair, we haven't had this with a family, so I couldn't tell you that. And they sent one passport back, but not the other. Then
No.
they've made them post out a self-addressed envelope. So when people go into Edinburgh, we're like, look, I know it's £7 or whatever it is, but just take an envelope for each applicant. Then when you hand in, because obviously all the files are separate, albeit that some might be beneficiaries of others, hand in an envelope for each file, and there's no, then you can't get all that way to that appointment. Now I'm not saying that's the advice that they give, but that would be our advice if you were going. Regarding the appointments, yeah, they're running fine. The S1s, we had a change in policy regarding the S1s, where now the consulates are asking for the S1s to be registered before people go to the appointments, which is great, because if you're not a resident, you can't register an S1. But long story short, we sort of think we've found a way around it, and we've tried it. We've already submitted some pre-registrations in, and we're just waiting to see how they react to it. So we'll know more about that in the next live. And the other thing to mention, which probably relates to what we're talking about now, is it's always a roller coaster ride, isn't it? Every single week there's something different. But of course, we've gone through the whole delay of strikes, you name it. Suddenly the consulates are rocking and rolling, and we seem to be, our processes seem to be going, yay. And now suddenly there's delays at the FCDO for the apostilles. They're about a month behind. So,
oh dear, yeah.
But it's easy. I don't think they went back to work after Jubilee. I'm not too sure, but there seems to be a massive backlog there. So if people are doing that, they have to take that into account. So so it's all about what we are going to talk about, the flexibility in your structure and stuff like that, because these things come up constantly.
Yeah, it's true. I've put in my notes, there's always something that's going to go wrong. I mean, it might not be catastrophically wrong, but there's always going to be some kind of fly in the ointment or a spanner in the works somewhere. So that's something to prepare for, really. Just expect. And it's almost an emotional preparation that you've got to do, because there's not much that you can prepare in terms of it's just being ready for it when it happens, ready to wait for something that's just blocking everything and stopping everything from working.
It is. I mean, we had a client, Steve, who went through London, got his visa very quickly, 13 days. But we had a fight with his medical certificate to get it actually legalized anyway. Long story short, but it turned out he was doing a small discovery trip literally beforehand to Altea. And I was like, okay, well, hang on a minute. And we managed to, I had a phone around and found a place in Benidorm, which for 30 quid would do his medical certificate for him. And I said, can you jump in your hire car, be there at 9 o'clock in the morning? That solved that problem. But yeah, so it's thinking on your feet a lot of the time when these things come up.
Yes, just got to be prepared. I'll tell you what, let's go through any questions I've had from social media straight away. Let's get that out the way. We've got let's talk about Gary. This is Gary. This is a comment on the how to transport your pet to Spain from the UK, one of our videos, and he said Brentney ferries refuse to carry pet rabbits. Their reasoning has two versions, one from the local office at Portsmouth, and the second one was a reply from head office. The Portsmouth management says they're afraid a rabbit might escape and chew the electrical wiring and sink the ship. And the second from head office was that they were afraid that an escaped rabbit would chew a hole in the ship and sink it. These are the views of supposedly grown men in the 21st century. I know this to be true because it happened to me, and I've cut off the end of his response because it starts talking bad about the French, so I better not do that. But yeah, he's one of your clients, isn't he?
Yes, yeah. When he told me this story, did you ever see Wallace and Gromit and that massive rabbit?
Oh yeah.
That's all that's in my head when it's suddenly start thinking just seeing these British ferries, all these people being terrorised by this massive rabbit off of Wallace and Gromit. It was that was the image that I had. It was that's quite funny. But yeah, I honestly didn't know that about rabbits. Either way, I suppose if you've got a pet rabbit which stays with you, then I know that Gary travels in a camper as well, so I think the rabbit probably goes in there. So.
Yeah. I don't know if the rabbits are one of the pets that you're allowed to transport anyway. I mean, it's a pest in some countries. I know Australia, but I don't know about in Europe. because somebody imported a rabbit into Australia, and now they have rabbit-proof fences, and there's even a film made about it. Have rabbit-proof fences to stop them because they just bred like wildfire, and they completely changed the ecology in Australia. So I don't know if that's happening in. Maybe somebody can tell us about that in the comments. So anyway, that's the bunny tale for today, and then we'll just look at Tony Stott, who is living the dream in Spain. That's the name of his Facebook page. Let's get this one up. He's talking about, is there a way of transferring your bank account with all of the direct debits like in the UK? Is this possible in Spain to do this? I don't think you can transfer direct debits. I think you have to reset them up again. I don't know if you know that, Chris.
In my experience, you have to set them up again. I recently did this actually, and I had to go to each individual service provider and give them new bank details. And they seem to have their own internal processes as well. It's okay, well, we're going to bill you one more through that one, and then we'll do that one, because obviously, so yeah, it's I think you have to do them individually.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, and it's a completely new agreement if you've got a different bank account details, I think. So yeah, individually. Sorry about that, Tony. We can't save you any time there. Okay, that's all the questions from social media, I think. Steve Noel says, "Does a rabbit need a pet passport?" There we go. I don't know the answer to that one.
I wonder if your dog transporter guy might extend to the knowledge of rabbits. We should ask him.
He did mention that there were 5 animals that he was allowed to transport, and but I can't remember what they are. Maybe Steve, you can have a look back at that video. The time codes are on there, and there was a question all about that. So have a look at that. But I will ask the pet transport man.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's get on with the topic of the day. Preparing. So we'll talk about visas and residency and paperwork and all of that kind of stuff. So over to you, Chris. I think you've got a little list there.
Yeah. So I mean, we were talking. I mean, the main thing that we were talking about with preparing, when you're looking at your timescales, is the flexibility of. I know we've spoken about this before, because of the unexpected things that can happen. Like now, as I said, we've gone from having the strikes to now delays of the UK end, right? But 90 days for the preparation of the paperwork, as we know that your acros, your apostilles, and your duplicate marriage certificates all need to be within 90 days. Is enough time to get that ready. But definitely, I think what a lot of people do is they put deadlines on themselves, and quite rightly so, because a lot of people are selling properties maybe, and they need that money to fund a visa. But it means that when they've sold the property, they've got nowhere to live. They need to be in Spain. Well, as we know, the Spanish consulates now like to retain the passports, and they do have up to 90 days to respond, though the average is around a month. Which means that you've always got to look at having that flexibility of probably having somewhere to stay in the interim period, of handing in your passport and actually getting the visa. And sometimes that's quite difficult for people who are selling properties, need those funds and don't have anywhere to go. You can request that they give you your passport back, but they really don't like it. Furthermore, that last year they didn't seem to mind too much, but this year they've been, no, we keep it and we don't really care. They've got a process in place now, and unfortunately we have to follow it. So I think the first main point would be, have you got somewhere to live, after you've sold your main property, and a backup. That's the big one. And then obviously the other thing about coming over is and we don't talk too much about taxes, but it is the tax side of things. So you've got to be careful. Obviously, if you're wrapping up affairs in the UK, consolidating assets, and coming to Spain, that you do it at the right time and take correct advice on both ends.
Yeah. They talk about having it's capital gains tax that a lot of people are trying to avoid paying in Spain, and it's to do with you need to in order to be a tax resident, you need to spend 183 days plus in Spain in a particular tax year, which is January to December. So it's, if you're moving it in the second half of the year, then, and you've not spent loads of time in Spain already in that year, because it doesn't have to be 183 days in a row. It can be split up into lots of different groups. It's all together in the year. So it's a good idea to move in the second half of the year, or sell your property one year and then move the next.
Exactly. I mean, that's why we had a. I was laughing with you the other day. I haven't put a YouTube video on my YouTube channel because I don't have a chance this month. But we've had a bit of an influx of. We had lots of people holding just because of that. So they were looking to come post July, and obviously now with the consulates opening, now they're actually in their documents and their paperwork. But the problem with that is that if you're looking at renting, you're not actually coming at the best time of the year, because if you're going to be dropping in, end of July, August, even the beginning of September, probably slightly easier. It's a terrible time to try and find a long-term or even short-term rental. So and those kind of things really have to be looked at, especially regarding, obviously, I think the property of property, when you're looking at giving up whatever you're doing in the UK and what time of year you're taking a property in Spain, it's definitely crucial to look at the seasonal differences, i.e. tourism and stuff here as well.
And of course, it's the time for students to be grabbing their visas as well. And that, like Albie was talking about in his question there. So the embassies might get totally blocked up with that.
There's that. I mean, so obviously we're in our year 2 experience of this, and year 1 was a disaster. But everybody finally got their visas from London, mainly London, which was a bit. So we had last year, Edinburgh was by the by, but we don't really have that many going through Edinburgh anyway. But I can remember we did have one in August, so that wasn't too bad. Manchester, we didn't get any response from Manchester from the last week in July all the way to the first week of September last year. And then they came back on board with appointments for late September. London, as everybody knows, famously just went AWOL. But now London have introduced this new booking system, and they seem to be responding well with the codes. There was a bit of a hiccup at the beginning of this month where I think they adjusted it, and people who had codes who suddenly couldn't get back on, and then they were being given the wrong appointments. There were people who were requesting non-lucrative visa were going on their codes, and it was coming up with a B appointment, which is for students and professionals. People who have been issued their codes after the 1st of June now go straight, instead of having the choice between non-lucrative visa and students, they only go to non-lucrative visa. So they're constantly improving it, and everybody who got the old codes and booked it and ended up with the wrong appointment has been seen to. So we're like, just go. We had one this week, and he said I can only get a student appointment. It's at 12 o'clock, so just go. We wrote in a scritto, one of my famous letters, handed it over, explained the situation. They were absolutely fine. And it seems like what they've done in London at the moment is all the way up to the end of July, there are appointments in the morning, but before 10:30. And it seems like the student appointments are there afterwards, and they're doing them on a daily basis. So look, let's hope that August continues.
Well, that's good that they're splitting up the time of day, and so they're getting through everything. I'm just going to have a look in the live chat here. Glyn, James, well, I'll come back to your question in a second, but we've got somebody new on. We've got Andrew saying, so what's the visa required to live and work in Spain or the Canaries when moving from the UK now? Seems there's a lot of talk about non-lucrative mostly.
Yeah, so working, as we know, as a UK national is hard, so you may be able to apply for the golden visa if you're lucky enough to have the money to invest, which allows you to work and live in Spain, self-employed, or if you've got an employer, then the employer can request permission and get a visa like that.
Yeah, I think the reason we talk about the non-lucrative mostly is because there are far more people going for the non-lucrative visa. And I keep asking on social media and on here for somebody to get in touch who has successfully applied for a self-employment visa, or the entrepreneur's visa as it's officially called.
Yeah.
and still haven't got any reply from anybody. So if anybody knows out there, here's the appeal again. If you've got successfully a self-employment visa, then please get in touch and tell me the process that you had to go through, because the success rate isn't very high.
Yeah.
I heard it was about 20%. It's just not very easy to get. And of course, the working visa is something that an employer needs to sort out for you. So, and that's
Yeah.
expensive and a lot of hoops to jump through. So I'd welcome people from America and the UK to get in touch and tell me all about that as well. But thanks for the question, Andrew.
We registered a vehicle for a guy who got a highly qualified professional work visa, which I was like, right, you've got to come to the office and we've got to chat. Please tell me. And he was just, I mean, it was just unbelievable what he's been through the last 6 months, and his company, and even what we had. And then when we came to pass his car through Aduanas, he's got a Harley and a Nissan. And obviously, Aduanas being customs, he doesn't have to pay any tax on that. It's from Slovakia. I mean, the paperwork was just, I mean, it was, they basically were saying, well, we need to know where he's been. Apparently I didn't know this, there's a convenio between the two countries that they don't have to change their fiscal residence or something along those lines. And he had the legislation in his hand, and they were saying, well, why haven't you signed off in your country of origin? Well, I don't have to, there's legislation. You know, and even with a work contract here, it took us half an hour to convince them that to give us the DUA, which allows it to be registered tax-free. So, you know, it was a very interesting conversation. There's a show's worth of info there, I can say.
Yeah, there was actually, we were talking before we went out live today all about camper vans, because there was on social media, I think it was on a Facebook group, somebody saying, I'm an American with an EU passport and I've imported a load of camper vans from the UK to Spain. And he was talking about, you know, how do I get the plates changed to Spanish ones? So what would you do, Chris, as the expert on that?
I've run away screaming. That's what I've run away screaming. No, look. Obviously, the thing is with the import of vehicles from outside the EU. I mean, well, you did an article, didn't you? The 3 Ts, which we've spoken about before, and there is the technical and the tax side of it is just so complicated depending on the status of the vehicle. So the first thing you have to look at is the status of the vehicle. So in terms of passing a technical inspection. So here in Andalusia, as long as the vehicle was registered before Brexit and has EU conformity, then it's fine to pass through a normal ITV. Evidently, camper vans have to have things like first and second build homologation. So you'll have a chassis conformity, and you'll have something like, say it's a Heimer, you'll have the Heimer, which is the second part of the build conformity. You'll find that quite a lot of the time you'll have to present a certificate for the electric, a bulletin, as you would for a house. You'd have to do one for a van, and also for the gas as well. You'd need an installator to come and give you a certificate for that. So that's in terms of passing the technical inspection. Everything we know as well, here in Spain, there's any adjustments which fall outside of the scope of the conformity are called reformas, and you can't have reformas on a vehicle which is being matriculated. So, you know, things like solar panels, even reversing cameras I've had taken off, you know. We once had a very famous case and a fight with the ITV regarding a Heimer that had an electric step built into the rear part of it was actually part of the chassis. It looked like part of the chassis. If you took it away, it would look ridiculous and leave a very dangerous gap. But it didn't figure on the certificate conformity from the stage 2 manufacturer. They said, there's no step here, Chris, that's got to come off. I'm like, we can't take it off. You can't get in and take it off. They're like, it's got to come off. It's not on there. I said, okay, there's got to be somewhere around it. They said, well, we need an installation certificate, and because it's a change of residence, then we can add it to us. We haven't got an installation because it comes with a ban. So anyway, long story short, we had to take it off.
Wow.
And we took it off, passed it, subsequently put it on again and passed every year. Now, I wouldn't say I'd advise you do that, but So that's the technical side of things you've really got to look at. If a vehicle is post Brexit as well, and it's a camper van, then probably the only way you can bring it through an ITV is for change of residence. And for change of residence, they then look at the status of the person who owns the van. So they have to have owned the van for a determined amount of time. Doesn't matter what nationality you are. You can be American and bring vehicles from the UK, but they're going to ask you, where did you live for the last 12 months to prove that actual vehicle was yours. So if you lived in the States and your vehicle's come from the UK, then you might have a problem there. If you're from the States, you lived in the UK, you bring them from the UK, then you should be okay. Evidently, they'd have to pass the customs protocol as well, which means proving that you're no longer a tax resident in the country where you were coming from, or paying customs, whichever way you want to do it.
So it sounds like, long story short, it's a pain in the neck.
I could go on.
Yeah. It sounds like, I mean, if he's bringing more than one camper van in, and I think he's talking about something like 5, it sounds like somebody who's going to set up a business of renting camper vans off or something like that, or having some kind of touring group, or because otherwise, why would you buy 5 or more and bring them in? Because you're not going to be able to use them all yourself. And if that's the case, then he's going to have trouble proving that he's owned them for long enough to not pay tax on them. And I think there's an awful lot of problems he's got coming there. I don't want to make assumptions, but it sounds bad to me.
And obviously your residency, if that is the plan, you can, if you're taking residency in Spain, bring your personal items and vehicles with you. If you've got 5, you've got 5. But then obviously it's your status when you get here. If you are third country national, you have that right to work or not.
He did say he's got an EU passport, so at least so that's a start. That's one good thing he's got in his favour. I heard one person saying that they had a problem because with the UK right-hand drive, the door to get into the not to get into the driver's seat, but the door to get into the camper van, it's normally curbside, so it's on the opposite side of the driver, and that's dangerous if you're in a left-hand drive country, because that's facing out onto the road. So I've heard of that being a problem, but that would be a massive job to move the door onto the other side of the vehicle, because you'd have to move all of the internal gubbins as well, because the door would be in the place where your cupboards are and all kinds of stuff. So,
and technically it's a reform.
Yeah, so you'd have to have it done. Oh no, you couldn't even have it done in Spain. No.
You might not be actually done.
There we go. Anyway, so we'll get off that subject then, and we'll answer Glyn. Planning for a move and looking online for properties. The question is, this is interesting actually, is it worth trying to find a property with a pool? What would be the average cost of maintaining a pool? Buying a property with a pool is going to be more expensive, in my experience, and I don't know what the average cost of maintenance is. I was told it's something like €80 a month to have somebody come and clean it.
So I've got it's quite funny because I've got recent experience with this, where to actually get a pool de-winterized, you can either maintain your pool all year, obviously, as you know, and sometimes that's actually quite a good idea, unless you can cover it and winter it. I had a quote for our pool. Somebody came up to clean it and then maintain it. They wanted €500 to turn it around and 120 a month to maintain it. So evidently I didn't do that. It turns out that it cost us in the end around €70 to clean it, after some wonderful work from my handyman. And then the maintenance, which I'm on our 2nd month now, apart from the electric costs, which our electric bills come in, but obviously we've just recently had this dip, haven't we? So it's probably not a true reflection of what it costs to run the pool, but it would probably be about €15 more expensive, I'd say, because we've had the things running. And then the products, I'd say again another probably €10 to €15. The chlorine and bobs you need.
That's per month, isn't it? Yeah,
not that much if you keep on top of it. I think if you let it go, then, but yeah, I mean, the size of your pool. But once it's actually up and running, it's not, as long as you're conscientious about it, it's not actually that expensive.
No, we've got one, and this house obviously belongs to our landlord, and he's a plumber, so and part of his business is coping with swimming pools, and maintaining them, and we had ours covered for the winter, so you'd think cover it for the winter, then it's going to be easier. Once you take the cover off, then you just have to start maintaining it, and it's not too difficult to get it ready again for the summer. But the because of the Kalima, all the dust coming over, actually got underneath the cover and just made a mess of it anyway. So we may as well have just left the cover off over the winter and maintained it regularly, because he had to empty the pool completely to clean all the thick mud off the bottom.
Oh, really?
So,
We
yeah.
managed to hoover ours in the end, but it was through some genius of our handyman who and it worked out quite well. There is this one product that we found, which actually once a month, it's called a Jolly Gel,
Oh yeah.
right? And it's got flocculantes in it. And basically, once a month, you can sort of do a Jolly Gel. You have to have it on for 24 hours, and you stick one of those in, and it turns the water literally crystal clear in 24 hours, and it maintains itself for a month.
Wow.
So there you go.
Oh, we'll have a look out for that. Because
Yeah.
we've learned how to do it ourselves now, so it's not costing us a penny to maintain, apart from buying the chlorine tablets, which we've been told
It's not as
swap them
hard
around
as I
once a
think that
fortnight.
you can do it yourself. I think, especially if you're retiring, I think you do it yourself. I mean, was it Sean you had on last week, wasn't it? He does his own one. I've seen one of his videos, and I think that there's a bit of science behind it, but there'd be no. I mean, I work quite a few hours, and I still manage to maintain mine pretty easily.
There's a big room underneath our house where all of the lots of tubes and things that you have to turn, and but the landlord sent one of his lads around, and I basically made a video on my phone of him talking about it and saying, right, you have to do this and this, because I'm glad I made the video, because there's quite a lot to do, but once you know what you're doing, it's Liz that's doing it now. She's got the hang of it, and I've forgotten completely, but I've still got the video on my phone, so just in case I need to do it. But
I sellotape post-it notes away. 1, 2, 3. So when I go down, I'm like, 1, 2. But
brilliant. Oh, and Glyn says, please say hi to Chris and thank him for the telephone chat the other day. There we go.
hey, Glenn.
And your Steve, your question about Rabbit needing a pet passport has been discussed here. I hope you're looking at the live chat. Donna has answered it really. You now require an AHC animal health certificate. Ray the Rabbit, I would speak to your vet. They would be able to guide you. And Donna also says Brittany Ferries only allow dogs, cats, and ferrets. Those are the three. That's what our pet man said on the video. Don't know why they allow ferrets and not rabbits. That's a good point. So there we go. And there we go. I think we're up to date on the chat. Anything else about, I think I interrupted you in the middle of all of talking about residency and visas, things to be prepared for.
Yeah, I think there's one thing that we've touched on. I don't know if we've touched on it before, but it's the registration of your NIE number in Spain and how that affects the various operations that you've got to do. So for people who've previously had an NIE number, so you would suspect that somebody who's got an NIE number before has had it for a reason, i.e. like buying a property. Mm-hmm. Okay, so if you're buying a property as a non-resident, we're seeing a lot of people now who are non-residents who have interest in Spain now, who are retiring, bring their plans forward, and now coming to Spain on an NLB. Well, they'll all have, if you've had an NIE before, the likelihood is that that NIE number will be registered at the tax office. Okay, because anything you do, as you know, needs to, in terms of paying a tax, you have to go through the tax office and you have to be registered with them. So to do that registration, it's done by a model 030 with the tax office. Now, normally, it's very rarely people do it themselves. Normally, if you're doing a property purchase as a non-resident, it would be your conveyancing lawyer that does that for you, to be able to present a tax. If it's a vehicle registration, for example, if you're using a HES store, they would probably do it the same as when you probably registered as self-employed. I'm sure that Antonio did it for you.
Yeah.
I've recently done one when we changed our physical address from our old office to the new one, which means then annoyingly I have to tell all of our providers to update the address as well. But
Yeah.
so that's the model 030. What we're finding though is for people who are getting NIE numbers the first time, i.e. they've been actually issued with their visas, okay, is that obviously they're then sending their goods in shekels into Spain, and they're with companies who are then bringing stuff over, and then they're saying, oh, we can't, your NIE isn't valid. It's not valid. It's because they can't process the import with customs because the model 030 hasn't been registered with the tax office.
Oh.
So when tax authorities, and a lot of the time the first point of contact is the customs when people are bringing their goods in shekels across, they're going to put all the details in, and all they say is, oh, it's not valid. It's not valid. Well, it is valid. It's just not been registered.
Okay. How do you get around that then?
Well, it's a tough one. You need, at the moment, we've managed to get around it with a couple of service providers. So like the likes of Antonio and someone else that we use have been able to register the model 030 using the Visa page on the passport. And then once it's registered, the other problem you have with customs is always is they're asking for proof of change of residence, which is a padron. Well, obviously, a lot of people have never been to Spain before, and a lot of people, especially this time of year where there's not very long-term rentals, don't have access to a padron, at that moment. So it really is worth looking at when you are bringing stuff over. You actually being here, if you send it before you come, then you could find that if you haven't had your NIE number registered and your padron, you have a problem getting it through customs. And then if you are sending containers over, just be aware that they may ask for a padron and the NIE number for it to be released tax-free.
I was going to talk about removals later on, actually, and one of the things that might be worth doing is storing your stuff in the UK for a little while until you've got all your rabbits in a row or ducks. I've got rabbits on the brain now. So anything else to do with that you need to be prepared for in terms of paperwork?
No, we spoke about money, didn't we? And we spoke about the paperwork. Obviously, we spoke about the finances, we spoke about the timing, the model 030. So, I mean, I think with the paperwork, obviously the other things are just to make sure things like your passport have a year left on them, at least, because again, this time of year, you suddenly come to go to your Lucrative Visa application, realise you haven't got enough time on your passport or a spare empty page, and then you can't get into Peterborough or Liverpool for love nor money because everybody wants a passport this time of year. So I think there's those kind of things to be aware of as well. Obviously, now we always ask our clients to provide a marriage certificate for a non-lucrative visa application. London and Edinburgh seem to want them. I'm going to be honest, Manchester are 50-50. We've actually had an email from them going, it's not needed. And okay, well, we do run a belts and braces policy, so we still think it's a good idea. But if you got married in maybe a more tropical climate and you can't get a duplicate marriage certificate and an apostille, then it's worth trying to make that move now. Again, we've got one going through at the moment. Some people got married in Las Vegas, and I was like, oh, here we go. It's going to be a professional company, duplicate, apostilled on the doorstep. 10 days.
That's worth having. It's worth keeping a note of that company on more than a post-it note then.
Yeah, I can believe it. It was a client of ours used them last year, and I just dug it out the email when I found and sent it to a current client and said, try these guys because they seemed to work last year and they were fantastic. So, you may be surprised, but that's worth bearing in mind as well.
Oh, we have a question from Emily Mason. Hello, Emily. Partner and I have got remote jobs with a UK employer who is happy for us to work from Spain. Interesting, because that's not yet possible, not without the digital Nomad Visa, which I did a video about only last week, or this week, in fact. But she says, Chris, is there anything else we can do in preparation for the DNV once it goes live?
That NLV? The digital Nomad Visa, sorry.
Oh, yes, yeah.
No, at the moment, no. I mean, there's not really a lot more that you can do to prepare until we know what it entails, to be honest. I mean, the one thing we do know is that they're definitely going to be looking at sort of shell companies and people setting up positions for themselves just to be a digital nomad. It's got to be something it's going to be proven history in the company and a proven job. We know that. But at the moment, I mean, the only thing I would say would be do your research in terms of, which I think we're going to come to anyway, is the areas where you want to live and etc. and the internet access but in terms of your end, there's not a lot really you can do until the Nomad Visa goes live, fortunately.
No, one of the things that I've read, whether of course it's not been announced yet properly, but one of the things that they were talking about when the government were talking about having this digital nomad visa was that you needed to have experience of it already, and they were talking about having a year's worth of being a remote worker, so that it's working and that you have proven track record. So if that's the case, then one of the things to do is make sure you're doing some remote working already. Get working for your company, work remotely, ask them to do that, and then you'll be able to talk about that in your application.
Yeah. So yeah, that's Sorry, someone's trying to call me.
No, I'll explain this question from Judith as well. Then, can you explain what apostille is? Yes, it's an official stamp that basically, if you if you get an official document, it needs an official stamp on it, an apostille, which confirms that that document is correct. Basically, it's been done by an official source. Does that cover it?
Yes.
Yeah.
Like the Hague Agreement.
Yeah, and Emily says, it's killing me waiting for an official announcement about the digital nomad visa. We've both been remote for 3 years now. Thanks, guys. There you go. You're in the good position. We just need to wait and find out what surprises they have in store when they bring it out. But if you watch the video that I made, I've taken all of the information that there is that looks like official information from the social media and from official sources, and put it all together into one video, and it's that's all we know at the moment. So yeah, as soon as the announcement happens, I'll make a video about it straight away. I'll do a live, in fact. There we go. So I've got one of my first things you should prepare for is learn some Spanish in advance. That should be the first thing you do, like a year or two before you even think about moving, and keep on learning when you get here as well, because there's no better respect from the community that you're going to be in than being able to speak their language, really.
Yeah, and it's so nice to see as well. Like I think you'll find that everybody who works here. I mean, with our clients, we've now got clients who've been here 2 or 3 years. In fact, this week we had one who, for the first time, did their own ITV appointment. And last year, so the first year we did it for her, and then the second year, I was like, right, I'm going to run you through the booking. Yeah, she was like, I want to have a go, and I'm going to send Tom over with you, but drive through, go through. Don't. I'm going to make him wait outside if there's a problem. And then this year we booked the appointment, and I was like, how confident you feeling? She was, I'm going to go for it. And it's been practicing the vocab for that, and the car passed, and she was over the moon. So it is really nice also to see people as they're progressing, and becoming part of the community as well, as you say, and doing things like that. It's great.
Yeah. It was noticeable. I went to the bank yesterday to pick up my new business account card, and it's taken that long to get properly resident. Anyway, the first time I went into the bank to open our non-residents bank account and spoke to the bank manager, it was all in English, and he was saying, and hopefully, in a few months' time, he'll be able to ask me things in Spanish as well. I'm going, yeah, and now I'm actually starting to converse with him in Spanish, and I've met him when out walking as well. He walks up the same hill that I do, and we talk about each other's families, and so it's amazing the difference within only a few months and the respect you get for that. You know, he's making sure that I've got no bank charges on my bank accounts, all three of them. That could, you know, if it was official proper bank's rules, he'd have said you need €750 a month going into each of the three accounts in order to make them free of bank charges. But he's just said, no, I'll just make sure it's just the one account, make sure that that's got enough money coming into it, and that'll cover you for all three. So that's just from trying to speak Spanish to him.
Yeah, you know, it really is, and you'll find that you'll be responded to well. You know, there's areas which are more difficult than others. You know, I go on Thursday. I always go to our business first meeting, and then I go to the coast and do what I need to do there once every fortnight. And if I nip into a shop, everybody speaks to me in English anyway. So, you know, I understand that because I blatantly look English. You know, so. I understand in some areas it's quite difficult when people are trying to learn Spanish, and you know you practice all day, practice going down the shops, and the first thing, you know, in a maybe more expat focused area, they'll speak to you in English. And certainly a couple of weeks ago when I was in Torrevieja, up that way, it's very heavily. I was shocked. You know, it's really hard to speak Spanish. You know, and in some of the areas, but it always just crack on, always try. You know, it will be it you know, and no one expects anybody to be perfect in Spanish, you know. So it's
and even when they speak back to you in English, because they know your English from your Spanish accent, or just by looking at you, like you say. Even though I've been here for a while now, and I'm slightly going a Spanish colour, but no, they still know I'm English and speak back to me in English. But I'm carrying on replying to them in Spanish if I can.
But unfortunately, after 22 years, this is my Spanish colour.
That is it, yeah.
It gets a bit red. That's about it, really, I'm afraid.
Yeah. So Judith was asking a question here. Do you envisage any different types of visas being issued, more flexible towards working in Spain as non-EU citizen?
No, at the moment, I don't think so, to be honest.
No.
Obviously, you know, the DMB, but yeah, aside from that, I can't see any change at the moment.
No, it takes them a while to go through, as you've seen with the digital nomad visa. They talked about it. The bit that went through Parliament last December when they announced it was all about the start of the process of doing it. So it'll take. And originally they said they're going to try and have it out in April this year, but no chance of that now. And
if it's taken 18 months to write legislation for a driving license exchange, as Joel's video said the other day, then maybe it's going to be a while for an immigration change.
Steve Knoll says driving license update news sounds very promising. Oh, there's been an update. Tell us about the update.
Yes, it was another video where it's almost like there's a little bit of a snippet every video, but there has an expected date has been announced. So that's
really?
Certainly putting your head on the chopping block there if you're an ambassador. Of the expected date of the end of July. That the principles have been agreed, and there was a lot of hoo-ha on the chat regarding, well, why can't they just give us the right to drive now, or you're going through all this? So obviously we don't know the politics behind it, but Hugh Elliott has said that the end of July is an expected date, which is the first time we've ever been given a sort of a date. So
wow. And that's an expected date actually for a swap, not to say, no, you can't have one.
I think that maybe, if reading between the lines, and please don't hold me to this, I would say that would be an expected date for an agreement where probably people will be able to allow back on the road. So, you know, while the agreement is being ironed out and put through law, that's what I would say. I know he's saying there's a lot of stuff to be written already and we've agreed on the principles, but I would say that would probably be where they turn around and go, okay, there's an agreement in place. The rule is that you can drive, and but don't forget, for people who have been resident for over 2 years anyway, still with a UK license, and they still shouldn't be driving because it should have been. So I don't know how that's going to affect people.
Yeah, and of course you can expect that once they say yes, then there's going to be a huge influx of people applying now, especially the new applications or anybody that's arrived recently, people that were given bad information who were here pre-Brexit. So there's a lot of all the Hestors are going to be going, right, let's get this done now. And all the lawyers are going to be going, right, let's get yours through now. So,
well, yeah, it's funny because we were talking, I was having a conversation with Antonio about this, how we're going to handle it, because I'm probably going to work with him on these when they come through, because he has obviously the access to the appointments, but the problem we've got is that other third country nationals who are doing license exchanges, it's not quite the same as an EU exchange, so we don't know how it's going to work. An EU exchange, you can, if you're a professional or a specialist or an habitual in Trafico, you can actually prepare the file, take the file, and do the operation for somebody. Yeah. For non-EU, they actually have to have a specific appointment set for that exchange. So, for example, in Malaga, they're running towards the end of the year. In Granada, even worse. So, if a non-EU exchange was to land on someone's desk today, then that person say, right, we need to book an appointment in Trafico, and that might be in October. And although a professional can attend that appointment for you, it's not like the EU where you can do it through the back door without an appointment. So what we don't know is, even when it does happen, what the grace period is going to be and what the process is going to be.
But at least you'll be allowed to drive in the meantime.
Yes, I think so. So that's good, and let's hope that at least there has. I think the biggest thing to take from the most recent announcement is the fact that the head's on the chopping block by saying a date. I mean, that's massive. So
at last, there's a light at the end of the tunnel.
Yes.
Question from Judith again. Can you apply for a non-lucrative NVL, a non-visa lucrative, while still working in the UK? Yes. And when is a P45 needed?
Brilliant question. Now, so this is for people who are working all the way up to the point of their appointment, and then giving up work after that. Not everybody has a P45 available, and the P45 isn't requested on the official consulate guidance. So when it comes into play and when I spoke to the consulate about this, and they say basically every single case they do a risk assessment. If they think that person's going to work in Spain, you have a chance of having your visa knocked back. Now, if you're very close to the financial limits, maybe a younger applicant, and have no proof that you're not working, then that could be difficult. You're going to need a P45 for that application. Yeah. If you're, say, an older applicant with a bigger financial stability, shall we say, still working up to the point that you're going to, go to your appointment, then the need for a P45 isn't as stringent. Yeah. So the P45 isn't requested on the official guidance, though we do tell all our clients if they're not of pensionable age to take one, because it's felt on an individual case basis. They want to see that you're not working. Or it's not that they want to see you're not working, they want to see that there's no suspect that they don't suspect you're going to work in Spain.
That's the main point, isn't it?
That's the main point. And most people would have proof of a resignation letter, or anything, if they didn't have the P45 to take with them as well.
Brilliant. I think we should give Judith one of the prizes this week for that question.
Yes, please do that.
There you go. So either send Chris a message via upsticks.es, or you could send to info@u2spain.com, and that'll come to me. And so we'll need a postal address to get you the prize. There we go. And next thing in my notes for preparation is something that you see on a lot of advice columns, which is try before you buy. If you're thinking of buying a house, it's a good idea in terms of preparation to rent first. And when you visit, get to know the local estate agents, because they do know much more, and there's much more available than what's on things like Idealista. And of course, on Idealista, it may not be updated on a regular basis enough. So you'll find properties that are on there to draw people in, and maybe they don't even exist. anymore, or that they've either been bought or it's a property that's photographed just to bring people in, and it's got a cheap price on it to make you think this is what's available. I'm not saying they do that on Idealista, but I've seen that on some sites. So yeah, get yourself over here, and that's another thing. It's be aware that when you're moving, you're going to need a bit of cash, extra cash, because there's always something that you've not thought of. There's for us, it was our car broke down coming down through Spain. I've told this story before, so I won't go into it, but it cost us extra coming down through Spain, and I didn't get the full insurance back, so it cost us another 1,000 that we weren't expecting to pay. And when we did get a Spanish car, that one broke down, and we had to get another one, which cost us another 1,000. So there's always things. So you're going to have a rental property. If you come over at this time of year and you're looking for a rental property, it's going to be way more expensive while you look for a house, because this is tourist season and people aren't renting out long term to anybody really. There's very few anyway.
No, you're right. And there's also obviously, I mean, the good thing is that now you can get your discovery trips in, where there's people who come on NLV last year who just couldn't do a discovery trip beforehand because of the COVID situation. So, it's luxurious position to be able to do so, please do. Mm-hmm. Obviously you've got to look at your support network, where you are. There's sometimes the support network in terms of shops and things around you change in the winter. If you're in a touristy area, you'll find that sometimes in a more urban area, it's the same all year round. So obviously the seasons completely changed. In Granada, you can have 40 in summer and -8 in winter. And then there's always the classic, don't rent until June, because I've got an 8-month rental and then I'm going to look for another property. Well, you're not going to look for anything in June, July. So, although it might seem nice to walk into a property in September, which gives you 8 months grace, that goes quite quickly, and it's so hard June, July, even August to find somewhere to rent.
Yeah. Well, I was glad that we moved in October, so we were looking through the month of October. We found somewhere in November, and eventually we started. What was it? Middle of November by the time we'd organised the property, and it was a lot easier to find properties. But still, even then, we were searching around for quite a bit.
Yeah,
we were staying in Granada province as well, so it was taking us an hour and a half to get to some of the properties that we were looking at, because we were going round via Malaga and back up east of Malaga to look at all these properties when we eventually found. So I don't know what we could have done looking ahead, but at least we had a cheap place to stay, because friends that let us stay in their B&B for a very cheap rent, so that kind of made up for it. So I mean, I think certainly looking ahead, if you renting's a good idea. Certainly renting's a good idea. You just got to be careful. And also another point to raise is, obviously, when you are looking at sort of this time of the year, is to look at the holiday periods, look how busy people are, because you'll find that June is everybody's busy in June. Historically, it's even before Brexit, so it's really hard. So people land with all this energy to go, and it's like, well, I can't get anybody to do bloody insurance. I can't get anything, So it's a busy time of the year for people who are working here. And then obviously, if you come in a holiday period during Christmas, for example, we know that all the puentes that we have at the beginning of December, then the Christmas period, everybody's working, but it's stop-start. So you've got to allow yourself time for that as well. Yeah, and of course, if you're the sort of person who needs, sorry about my dog's barking in the background. If you're looking at various different areas, do go at different times of year, because it may be that there are areas, especially the tourist areas, they just go completely silent over from October right the way through to Easter at least.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of crazy. I mean, I was, again, last year, the last couple of weeks ago when I was in Alicante, and I went to, for example, Ciudad Quesada, I you can see that that's just all year round. It looked like there's a lot of people there who live there all year round. You can see there's a sort of an all year round vibe to the place, and it probably wouldn't change. And your whole support network around you would be the same. And obviously, if anybody knows it better than me, let us know. But and then you go to somewhere like Fuengirola, where it's like massively busy in the summer, and then at winter it sort of dies a death. So yeah, there's definitely. I mean, it really is changeable.
Yeah, yeah. And I've got in my notes, when you're looking for somewhere to live, be aware of your transport needs. It's all very well being in your sort of dream location, which is what we were thinking was going to be our dream location, where you're out in the wilds, where it's totally peaceful. It's a romantic idyll with only the sounds of the cicadas as you gaze out from your beautiful terrace at sunset, with a case of high quality wine beside you that only cost you a tenner. But when you're actually here and you're half an hour from the nearest supermarket, you've got to drive everywhere. You're 2 hours from the nearest airport, so very few people can reach you easily. And yeah, you have to drive everywhere, and you can't. So you can't just go out to a restaurant, just walk down the road and go to a restaurant, because one of you's got to drive, and so you can't have the normal glass of wine that you were dreaming about having. And of course, if you're a couple who've had kids living with you, you've grown up, you've gone for retirement, suddenly you find yourself in a property like a lot of people did during the lockdown. You're in a property with a person that you've never spent 24 hours a day with, in a place where you can't get out and interact with people. And it's been disastrous for some people's marriages and for their liver as well, because you just end up sitting drinking wine all day.
Yeah, lockdown livers, lockdown livers. Every time the lockdown, the extra weight from lockdown, sort of, you can't really use that excuse anymore, can we? But yeah, no, it has been. Yeah, it's it is. There's a when you get here. I mean, even now, when I've lived here 22 years, and you still go to supermarket and go, oh, yeah, we'll have some of that. We'll have some of that. So. You always, there is different living here. You're never going to get back to your same routine you had before.
Yeah.
I mean, but the one thing is, it's exciting as well. I mean, if you can get, even if you're retired, I can see there might be an inkling to maybe have a beer a bit earlier in the day. But then, the Spanish generally do have a canya with their menu there, but then just have a cup of tea at night time. So I suppose it's just also adjusting to the way of life, isn't it? So you may have a work lunch where you have a glass of wine, but actually when you get home in the evening, you don't drink. So, but it is, once you are here and you're adjusted to it, it's a very beautiful life.
It is, yeah. We've still not adjusted completely. We don't eat later, we still eat about 6 o'clock. And that's our main meal. And that's our big meal, and we have a snack earlier on in the day, unless we actually go out down to the coast, and then we have a main meal on a chiringuito on the beach. We have a load of freshly grilled fish, and that's fantastic. But we still only then have a light snack at 6 o'clock, and that's us for the day. And then we're collapsed on the settee by that point, and because we've had 2 glasses of wine, so we don't even bother going out when all of the Spaniards are setting off at 10 o'clock to go out to restaurants. So it takes a while to change.
It does. I'm trying to implement slightly more summer hours for working, which is quite hard, because obviously we work from the Spanish end. Everybody up till now works morning, siesta, then evening. So people who work with us you'll get a call from 8 till 2, and then won't get anything from 5 till 9, for example. But in that mid period of the day, it's when all the Brits are working. So we sort of have this extended day between the two. But it's now most offices, there's something else to remember as well, that when you do come in summer, a lot of people do adopt summer hours, where they'll close at 2 now, and that'll be it. So especially administrative offices. I mean, a lot of them do it all year.
Yeah.
But private offices, hestors, accountants, notaries, you'll find that very rare July, August, from around this date onwards, that they're open in the afternoon.
Yeah.
Very rare.
Our bank's only open here until 2, and that's all year round.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
Which is fair enough. You just get used to going in early. And I'm certainly starting to wake up very early in the morning now, and if we want to walk the dogs, you've got to do it before 9 o'clock, because that's when the sun comes over the mountain and the temperatures just rockets up 10 degrees. So, and it's too hot for them then. Let's go back on the chat. You're not time restricted today, Chris?
No, that's why I'm at home, because the children are there doing their swimming lessons, and then they're straight off to golf. So I said, look, you guys put yourselves off. I am on the chat. I'm going to sit at home and do the live. So it's again, it's timetables. You know, it was like yesterday. We're looking at it going, nah, we're missing one person in the car here. So you go yourselves off, and I'll stay here. So.
Nice. First of all, Donna, she says, I think the answer to this is yes. Without the driving licence and being an EU citizen, would an Irish passport holder be classed as an EU citizen and exchange in the same way as an EU citizen? It's your driving licence nationality and not your passport that matters. So if you've got a UK driving licence, then you've got to swap it. I'm an Irish passport holder, but I've also got an Irish driving licence because I lived in Ireland. So that can be swapped easily. I thought it had to be swapped in the first 2 years, but I've been told now I can carry on and keep it until it needs renewing, really. But I'm going to
2 years. 2 years. Do it within 2 years. Yeah.
Yeah. I'll do that then. So that's answered that one. Andrew, interesting question. Can you run a YouTube channel on a non-lucrative visa? Well, yes. If you earn as little as I do, then yes. Then no. Actually, if you earn anything from the YouTube channel. I've started to get revenue through from it, so no, I wouldn't be allowed on a non-lucrative visa to do this. But if you're not earning any revenue, if you're just starting one off, then yeah, that's fine. Yeah. Judith says, no, I don't want a prize. I want a phone call with Chris on a Saturday so my husband can attend. You do them on a Wednesday, don't you?
We do. Drop us an email to support, and I'll try and arrange it.
There we go. Fantastic. Steve says, good question.
But you have to deal with my wife, because I'm not allowed to make calls on Saturdays.
Of course, yes. Alan Lackenby says, can you please reply to Glyn James' question about state pension, as I'm interested in this as well? Let's go back and find out. I missed that one completely. I was busy chatting. State pension, here it is. Is it best to have it paid into a UK bank, a Wise type account, or direct to a Spanish bank account? Do I need to maintain a UK bank account? This is a question for me because of this Monday show that I'm starting off next Monday, and every Monday lunchtime. It's best to pay into, you say a Wise type account, I say smart currency exchange, which is, I say, even better, because what you can do is you can fix a rate today that the exchange will be for the whole of the year of your pension. What that means is that if the exchange rates change and the pound dips, which it's doing horrendously at the moment, then you won't get a reduced pension in euros every month throughout the year. You can fix the rate for anything up to 2 years, I think. So you know how many euros you're going to get into the bank account in Spain. So yeah, I'd go through a currency exchange company and do it through the link below, and you get your own personal advisor, and you also help U2 Spain, because I get a small commission. Thank you very much. There we go. That's my plug. Here we go. Any more questions? Yes, we do. Yeah, I've got to fly forward again. Thomas Williams, has he written to you? Sorry, my mail was too long. Where can I write to let you know about his positive reply? I'm not sure what that's about. Have you already asked a question further up? Don't know. Sorry about that, Thomas. Can you explain a little more? Was that for Chris? Have you written him a long email?
So my mail was too long. Where can I write to let you know? Don't know. Top of my head.
Okay then. Confusing one. And
Sorry.
Question from Stacey Gofton. Hello, Stacey. We're looking to move to Spain in the next few months. Do I need to find a job out there first before I apply for visa and residency, etc.?
That depends obviously on your passport status, on how you do that, really, doesn't it?
Yeah. Are you a UK passport holder? Is your partner a UK passport holder? Answer that question first, and then we can answer that one. We'd better start moving through quickly if there's any more things to talk about on this today's topic, because we've been going for an hour and 15 minutes now, so we don't want to make it too long. I talked about transport network and keep within easy reach of medical services as well as shops, and it's always handy to be near the internet, to be near a major road really. Although I've found that even in places like I am, which is 25 minutes from the nearest motorway, we're up in the mountains and they've installed fibre network up here. So I think they took a lot of EU money in the south of Spain and made it possible for places like this, places that go up a valley, where there's a road that goes up a valley, and there are lots of villages with enough people in. They made it possible for people to have high-speed internet, so that is good. But still, it takes us 25 minutes to get down to the coast to a big hospital, and an ambulance would find it might take a while. We'd have to get helicoptered out if it was an emergency.
Yeah, I think we always get a lot of questions regarding prescriptions and stuff, and obviously in the UK, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe you pay a set price for your prescriptions. Mm-hmm. And in Spain, whether you have access to, there's various ways you can get access to a reduction on the price of medicine. Depending on your status here, we don't have to go into all them now, but you either pay full price or you get a reduction. But whatever happens, even when you get a reduction, you still pay a percentage of the price of the medication that you need. That's the difference. So a prescription as we know it doesn't exist. A reduction in the price of what you're going to receive does exist depending on your status, whether it be S1 working, children, whatever. Mm-hmm. The other question we get quite a lot is regarding, how will my doctor know? Well, basically that is, I suppose, it's something you can prepare, is medical records. If you are coming to Spain and you do require, medicine, whether it be under private or national health, then just make sure you've got your history with you, because the person who is this end, the private sector, I can't really comment on too much because we know about the policies, but I don't know about what actually happens mm-hmm. that much, because I haven't got a private policy myself. But certainly on the public sector, you'll find that once you're signed up to a doctor, then more than likely you'll have to go to that doctor, have a consultation with them, and they will set the frequency and the medicine that they believe seems fit, because you're under them. So I've seen it at times where doctors have just looked at the drugs from the UK and the list have gone there, they can have them and come back in 6 months type thing. And then every time doctors have assessed it and gone, no, we believe this is wrong, you need to have this. So you're really in the hands of your medical professionals at that point. So it's something to be aware of, that it may not just be as easy to take your drugs that you get in the UK and bring them over here. So definitely, if there's a period where you're getting your feet under the table, make sure you're covered for that period.
Thomas says if you're over 60, you do not pay. I presume that's in the UK. And he's also replied about to explain. He was talking about the message from Hugh Elliott, that's the ambassador, this morning about driving licenses. So where can you write? Send me an email to info@u2spain.com, Thomas, with that full response from Hugh Elliott. Thank you very much. And Stacey Gofton says, I am, which was we were asking, are you a UK passport holder? So to answer your question, do you need to find a job out there first? That's very, very difficult, because you're now a third country national. And in order to get a job out here, the job needs to be advertised, first of all, to Spanish nationals and then to EU nationals. So if you're not, then unless it's a highly specialised job, like Chris was talking before about a highly qualified working visa that one of his clients got, and unless a specialist that they would find difficult to fulfil the role in Spain, then it's very difficult to get a job out here.
Yeah. It was difficult before. So.
Yeah, there's high unemployment, and especially amongst younger people. Jason says, are there specialist removal companies who I can use for moving to Spain? There are thousands, and I don't have any that I can recommend to you. I'm looking for one at the moment that can come on the show, because it's about time. I haven't done a show about removals for quite a while now, and it's about time we had an update. And especially we need an update about moving some of your goods from the UK, because the rules have changed. And even on the last program, the company we were talking to said, oh no, nothing's changed since Brexit. And I actually know that things have changed, because there's a lot more paperwork to go through. So I will make sure, Jason, that we have somebody on a show in the very near future to talk about that. Thanks for your question. And Dame Horatia, or is it Dame? How's Spain with regards to people with mobility issues? Are disabled catered for, better areas to settle, and would I need private medical insurance for medical issues?
No, I mean, again, it's one of those things. It's a little bit, I could turn around and say, no, it's absolutely fantastic, because that's my experience. And you'll go to somewhere in Granada and go, the ramps are like that and I can't get in anywhere. So, it goes back to what we were saying before about choosing your area wisely. Evidently, somebody with mobility issues doesn't want to be in a village like Loja in Granada, because there isn't a flat road. But in general, pretty good. There is. The only problem that I find with mobility issues, maybe when older style buildings like restaurants and maybe town halls and official buildings have had to adapt to the new EU sort of ruling, you'll find the odd ridiculous ramp where you think, I couldn't walk up it. So God knows how they expect somebody to be pushed up it in a wheelchair maybe. But so that's the old. So the old has adapted, but not to the best of their ability, and in terms of the new, like new builds and stuff like that, no, very good. So we work quite a lot with in ingeniero técnico, technical engineer, I suppose, and they are in charge of everything from like certificate conformities to opening premises. So they'll sign off an opening license, and they have to go and say the door's this wide. There's this, so you need a ramp. There's this, so you need a rail here. And only yesterday, I was talking to Jose, our technician, about it, and he was saying it's stricter again. So, it's great for him because he gets a lot more work. But yeah, in terms of the moving forward, it's very positive for people with mobility issues. But in the past, they've had to adapt older buildings when the legislation wasn't in place,
Mm-hmm. And the last part of the question is, would I need private medical insurance for medical issues? You definitely need some kind of healthcare cover. It depends on whether you're retired and you've got your S1, I suppose.
I mean, look, for obviously we know for residency, whichever way that you'd be getting residency, you would need either S1 or you need either public or private healthcare. And for any form of residency, in whichever way you're going to get it, it's got to be public or private. I think the question probably is directed towards, would a public maybe health centre cover specific medical issues for people with mobility issues? Maybe not. Maybe you might not be getting free equipment. Maybe you might have to get equipment privately. I certainly know on a very, very, very light scale, when Lara managed to break both ankles 2 years apart, the first thing they did was definitely give her crutches and what she needed. But I really don't know in terms of further equipment, like wheelchairs and stuff like that, whether you get that or not. I have to find maybe a private option for yourself, where maybe in the UK or other countries you'd be given that by the state. So that might be, if anybody's on the chat and has experience with that, a good thing to find out. Because I don't know to what extent. Sorry, someone's trying to call me again. I don't know to what extent you'll get something on the public sector. There.
Yeah, and the private healthcare insurance. We did have somebody on the program, actually, I think it was very early this year, have a look for that on our videos, and there are a lot of answers about it's to do with co-payments as well, and whether you're covered for pre-existing conditions and things like that. And there were a lot of good answers that our specialist gave on that show. So have a look at that video. As I always say, there are time codes that you can find if you click on more here, read more, on the title of the video description. It opens up the whole video description, and you can see time codes right at the bottom, and you can find your question that you need an answer to. Just click on the time there and it takes you to the point in the video where you can get your answer. So that's good, because a lot of these videos that we're making, the live ones, are an hour and 24 long, like today. So,
Yeah, and the just touching on that as well is mobility. I mean, again, I can't talk for everywhere, but I know here in Malaga they do have taxis and Ubers which are good for people with reduced mobility. Whether it's because we're close to the airport, I don't know, but I certainly know in this area where I am that you can get them. So that's positive. But I think obviously stay closer to a nucleus or a city, because you might find that's slightly more different when you go out of town.
Good question from Jason. Well, it's an assumption. I assume UK electricals won't work in Spain. You assume wrong. This computer I'm working on is it was bought in Ireland, so that's the same plug. No, you just need to have adapters like you would if you go on holiday. It's especially I think it's the same for all computers. I know that Apple computers have something inside them that switches the voltage if you use a different voltage in Europe or in America, because they can ship computers out to anywhere in the world. So they've done that okay. But no, I've got lots of equipment in this very room that has UK plugs on it, and I've just got adapters for them. So yeah, easy.
Yeah, same as I've done that.
You gradually find that you buy more and more European things, and gradually it's already happening with us. I'm gradually having more.
Or change your plugs. I had this battle, even because I've got some music equipment I bought over with me years ago. I had it when I was in the 90s, so it's still here now. And my friend bought over some for a recent party because he said that your stuff's 30 years old and rubbish. And it all worked. I have to be honest, we did just chop the plugs off and put Spanish ones on with the earth. There's a myth that it's not earthed in Spain. Not everything's earthed, but the lighting circuits don't generally tend to be earthed, but the plugs do if it's done properly.
How does that work with the 2-pin then?
Because they have the bit on the side, so you have the 2 pins, and the earth is the
it's the little metal bit on the side that goes in the slot. Yeah, of course. There you go. So Steve Knowles says, so no earth on electricals then. Well, we've just answered that one there.
No, it is, because it was very important, obviously, for the music equipment. So we had to find one of the plugs which was earthed in the house, and because you get a lot of feedback, it's not earthed. And then we ended up, I didn't do it. And then chop all the plugs off, get some. The only thing I would say with that is, and definitely I'm not an electrician, so I can't give electrical advice, but I would say buy your plug sockets if you're going to change any plugs from a ferreteria, not the Chinese shop, because you can buy very nice, rather strong ones. And I'm not saying the Chinese shop sells dodgy electric equipment, but I believe they're better quality from the ferreteria.
Yeah, I can vouch for that. Actually, I got one of my music gigs. I'm in a music duo, and I plugged in one of my adapters into my mate's Euro plug board and everything, and it took us a month to get it out of there again. It just got stuck.
It's not always that. It's not always that cheaper now. I just bought an extension that I needed a 50-meter extension from the ferreteria, and the extension was 39 euros basically for the extension with a 4-plug in it, and the Chinese shop wanted 34. So for 39 I'm going to go with a better quality.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not saying that we're not saying the Chinese shops are bad. We have bought loads
of
things.
They're fantastic for very many things, and thank God if you've got kids. If you've got kids, you will know that Chinese shop is the best thing in the world, because when you need a last-minute polystyrene ball for a project tomorrow at 9 o'clock at night, then you can go down and get one. We're just saying there's other areas where you can probably buy stuff.
If you need a costume for a party, there's a place in a Chinese shop. I call it a shop. It's more like a complete shopping centre. All itself, it's 2 floors. It's about the size of Wales, and it's got a costume section, which is absolutely enormous. There's something for every occasion, and like Chris says, they're open 25 hours a day. So It's lovely.
And they're very good for things like stationery. You know, they're very good for things like that. You know, so and last minute emergencies as well. Children's party rubbish, balloons, pool stuff. Again, but it's you know, there's the pool equipment. We touched on that before. You know, pool chemicals and stuff. Probably, I eventually found a pool shop which I didn't know existed, but a friend of mine directed me to a pool shop local to us. Very small, very local business. Guy's really nice in there, and I bought the products from there. And it turns out, because I noticed that the ones I initially bought from the Chinese shop, the tablets were using so quickly. It's gone again. I don't, and I'm trying to judge the strip pH and stuff. And it turns out that there are some really good quality ones that you can buy, but you need to go to a pool shop and get the special ones. And by the time you've done the calculation of the 4 pots you bought from the Chinese and the expensive ones which don't take as long, it's actually cheaper as well.
Yeah, go to the ferreteria. We've got a great one here. In fact, there's 2 in the village. So very quickly, let's run through the last things that I've got on my list then of things to prepare. We were talking about removals. There's a huge range of prices in terms of removals, so do shop around and get recommendations. That's my advice. But I would say the biggest preparation to do is pare down what you've got, especially if you're moving out and retiring, and you might be retiring to a smaller property. You're reducing. Sell off a load of your stuff, because if you take a house full of stuff, then it costs you a lot more for your removal. You'll have a lot bigger van, and you might find that when you get to your house, that the removal lorry, massive ones, can't get down the track if you're out in the campo. There's lots of people who say, yeah, just get rid, sell off, and pass it on to your family, and buy in Spain if you need stuff. Very often when you buy or rent a property, that it's already full of furniture anyway.
How have you found? It's a question for you, because I don't know, because obviously it's not something I know, but I used to know that here in Spain, it seems to now the prices have leveled up, like things like electrical items, TVs, washing machines, you name it. Seems to be pretty on a level now with what you'd pay in the UK or Ireland maybe, whereas before it used to be a lot more expensive here. So I don't know, when people are bringing that, never bring a TV with you, because it's the same price here as it would be in the UK. Have you found that when you moved and bought stuff?
Yeah, I think so. We've not bought an awful lot of stuff here, but I mean, we came from Ireland, so there wasn't the problem of paying extra charges like you would do when you're coming from the UK, because you come through customs, and some of the stuff, if you've not got receipts for it, like you probably won't have for a lot of your stuff anyway, you can get hit with charges and customs duty and things like that. But that wasn't the case from Ireland. I mean, I've got a TV here which was bought in Ireland. I'm using it for my second monitor, and I brought that one. But I think you can get TVs the same price, and I think TVs in Ireland are actually going down in price anyway, because you can get much better quality ones now for cheaper prices. So yeah, I think it's leveled up. But as I say, I've not been actually looking for one, because we don't need one. And there's one in the house. There's a full high spec 4D HD thing, or 4K, whatever it's called. There's one of them in the house already when we came, because we're renting. So, but yeah, for anything I bought, it seems to be fairly similar prices.
Yeah, on par. I think it seems on par, more or less. Brilliant.
Yeah, Ireland, I know, is quite expensive for food compared to the UK. A lot of people find that. I don't know if it was the exchange rate that was doing that, but no, going out for a meal in Ireland is more expensive, and food in general was more expensive. So it's definitely cheaper here. But of course, even food prices are starting to rise. They're not on par with the UK, but definitely starting to rise, aren't they?
They have, yeah. We've certainly noticed that. Yeah, definitely. With I think the staples are rising. Obviously, we've got the rise in the petrol cost, which is everywhere as well. Which is again something, when you're talking about somebody moving, you never thought years ago, or just when you work into your budget the cost of the fuel, you say, okay, you can't go anywhere. But Spain is a lot bigger country. Suddenly you're going to be using a lot more fuel, and suddenly the fuel's at €2 a litre. if you are living out somewhere where you need to make a lot of trips, that might suddenly make a dent. When it's at 60, 70 cents, it doesn't, does it? But that is a consideration.
Yeah, absolutely. Jason's asking, what's the longest period for a rental property you can get in Spain? It tends to be a year, but it's a year that you can renew. Make sure you don't get a temporada contract, which is like up to 11 months, because that one can be, once that stops, then your landlord or the agent can actually start up a new one, and it can be a different amount for rent. So and it can't be renewed as easily, just automatically. Whereas if you get the proper complete 12-month one, get a good Hestor to go through one with you, and make sure you get the right one. And
I seem to remember you did a fantastic video on this, didn't you, back then with Darren, the estate agent? That was about an hour and a half long. You went through all rental contracts and stuff, didn't you?
I think we did, yes, yeah. I can't remember where
While
that
ago
video is.
now.
Yeah, it was last year. And we have actually next week we've got on Matthew Wood from Langeron Properties, and two other guests as well. So we're going to be talking about that next week. So join us next week, Jason. Can the landlord increase it, he says, during the lease in peak season? Not if it's on your contract that they can't, no.
No, and they can only increase by, I mean, again, this is one for estate agent next week, but the ITP rate at the end of your contract, they can, the cost of living rate, they can stick your rent up, but they can't just go, I'm going to charge you an extra €200.
No.
So once you've got your rate, then they can put it up legally. But certainly during peak season, it depends what you're contracted for. But if you've got a long-term contract, no, you can't.
No. Yeah. So, yeah. There we go. Not much more to say about that until next week. I think I'll leave that to the expert. Anything else I've got on here? Examine different ways of moving as well. This isn't just about removals. It's about getting yourself there. Do you have any pets? This is an important factor. We decided to drive down from Ireland in a car that was big enough to fit us and our pet in there, because it's not as easy from Ireland. I mean, there's only the ferries from, Rosslare down to Bilbao or Santander. So, and there's not very many, and they don't go in the winter either because the seas are too rough. So a bit more difficult from Ireland. But if you're going over from the UK, it's a lot easier. You can go through the tunnel. It's a lot easier to drive. But there are pet removal companies who can take your pets as well. Flying your pet is a lot more expensive. But prepare to do a lot of research is the biggest thing on everything that we've covered in the show, I think.
Yeah, definitely. I think research. I mean, and it is shocking, like the difference between the areas as well. As I say, I did I've done a few road trips this year, and they're complete. I a lot of the time I like to get on the road as well to see, because if you think up to Brexit, our job was very local because people would get residency locally, and we didn't really deal on a national basis. Evidently, since Brexit, doing non-lucrative visas, we're now dealing nationally across the whole of Spain, and it's sometimes it's to get in the head of people and your clients where they're going and understanding how they're feeling. You have to be there. So that's why I've done the trips to the UK. I've been traveling more. I've got another trip coming up, just because if not, you can't envisage what they're actually going through when you're speaking to somebody on the phone. And the same is with the different areas in Spain. So like, I went up to Alicante to set up our appointment specialist up there, but I had a good look around the areas where my people are going. Because I'm talking to them, I haven't got in my head, I can't visualize where they're going. And it's hard then, although, it's not part of what we're doing with the visa, it's hard for me to know, and I need to know. So, and I stopped off in a couple of places now, Maria, on the way home, stopped off in Matheron. And, they're completely different. It really is amazing, the difference between like Orihuela, Torreviejas, Ciudad Quesada, Matheron, Almeria, Malaga. The areas are just, just completely different. So discovery trip, and check everywhere else.
Everywhere is different.
Yeah.
I talked about something going wrong earlier. Prepare to be surprised. It's never going to be exactly how you imagine it. So I've said have that spare pot of cash for emergencies. Something will go wrong. It's not that I'm a pessimist. It's just that, you know, there'll be a spanner in the works, however small. And when something like that happens, you've got the language barrier, you've got the culture shock of something, of different ways of coping with things, and that just amplifies the problem. And it's difficult to imagine how it makes you feel at the time. When it happened to us, we were so lucky that the breakdown man helped us through the problem, because we were stuck in the middle of nowhere. We were busy trying to book a hotel on booking.com, and he looked at my phone when I was making the booking. He said, "No, God, no, don't book in there." He said, "That's just over the other side. That's in a motorway service station. There'll be nothing to do. You'll have to eat their food in the hotel. You can't walk anywhere. There's no town. There's no village around here." So we had no idea. And he said, "You can't walk there because it's on the opposite side of the motorway. There's no way of crossing the motorway. You'd have to walk 10 miles that way, cross the motorway, and come all the way back again." He says, "And you've got all of this luggage, or you'd need to get a taxi." And eventually he managed to book us in. And also on booking.com it says, yes, you can have a pet at this. If you tick a little box, yes, you can have a pet. And then you phone them up and they say, yes, I've booked in and we've got a pet. And they say, no, we don't allow pets. And yet they've ticked the box. Or with one that we said, yes, we've got a pet. They phoned back and said, how big is your pet? And I said, she's 25 kilos. And they said, oh, no, we can't have one that big. So, yeah. And if it wasn't for the guy who sorted it out for us, and he said, go back to the city, go all the way back to Bilbao. And he managed to get us a taxi. Of course, not all taxis take dogs. So he had to negotiate with a taxi company to send us out an estate car. And it was like a brand new taxi, brand new estate car. And he had to put down some stuff in the back and chain the dog up so it didn't move around and dirty his car. So,
wow.
As it turned out, he was a lovely bloke anyway. So, yeah.
Yeah. I think it's just, as you say, respect eventualities, but just, calm down. When something does go wrong, you're dealing with an amazing amount of different organisations, offices and people when you make a move, aren't you? So it's not always going to go as smoothly as you think, but most of the time there's a resolution to the problem.
Yeah, absolutely. We're looking at it optimistically. Jason said the best time to secure your lease is out of peak season. Yes, very easy answer to that one. Yeah. You're much likely to get a more favourable response from a landlord then. David McGee, hello. Are there companies from which you can hire a van, maybe like a transit, and leave it with a company in Spain? Just thinking it could be cheaper for removals. We didn't find any one way. We searched and searched and searched, certainly from Ireland. And I've heard people say in the UK, no, it might be cheaper actually to buy a van in the UK and try that. But even then, you've got the problem of maybe taking it back to the UK to sell, because it's not as easy to sell one in Spain. Although I put our car on Facebook Marketplace and it went within 5 minutes. So there you go.
Yeah, I don't know any companies. But...
No. And final one here. Vodka Dave, what a great handle. Completed on my house in Bolnueva, driving through the tunnel on Wednesday. Well done, Vodka Dave. Good luck with your trip.
Where's that?
Bolnuevo, I don't know. I think there's a spelling mistake, because Nuevo's got the E and the U the wrong way around, so maybe Bol is as well. And Anthony says, don't expect to achieve more than one admin task per day. Yeah, we learnt that.
You do that, you're doing well. You do that, you're doing well.
I've got in my notes, get a good hat. That's my biggest one. And get a hat that stops UV rays. You'd be surprised that if you've just got a normal hat, you might be covered from the sun and you might be in shadow, but actually it's the UV rays, it's radiation that gets through, and it gets through materials, it gets through shirts. So be careful when you're out in the sun, and the sunburn can creep up on you. Don't be the sort of person who says, I'll be fine. I've done it myself, trust me. And I've got a brilliant hat that does stop UV rays. Sometimes I've walked up halfway up the mountain and I've just not put it on. I've just left it in my bag, and it's not until later on in the day, when you look in the mirror, when you go upstairs to your bedroom, you put the light on in the bathroom, and suddenly you go bang, and you're bright red. So there you
Yeah.
go. Oh, Rob Butler says he's come across 2 companies that do one-way hires. I'll try and find out some details. Good, Rob. Thank you for that. Send it on to us, or put it on the U to Spain Facebook group, and everybody join that group, and you can get the answer there. There we go. Steve Knoll says just outside Port of Matharon, lovely place. Lucky Vodka Dave. Oh, that's where that place is. Okay, there. Good. And we have Robin Villa. We'll be arriving with 2 school children aged, in March 2023 before Easter. How easy will it be to get them started in Spanish public school? There are 5 in our town, I think that should say.
That's my wife.
Yeah.
Lauren, ours have been in public school since the start, since nursery, since they were 5 months old. Well, say they've been in the public system since they went to nursery because we had to go to work. So it's a continuous thing. But we've actually just completed the renewal paperwork, and it has to be completed within a specific time frame. And I know that, I mean, my wife would be a lot more qualified than me to answer this, but I know we only had until. I think we had a month, and it was up till last week for the following curso, which starts in September. So whether you'd be able to get them in March, I'm not too sure.
I think if you applied now, I would start looking and applying. Although they might say, I remember Laura saying, because I had your wife Chris, Laura, on the show just before Christmas. So Robin, watch that video. Have a look. If you can't find it. I'll send it to you. It's quite a fun video actually, because we're both wearing Christmas hats and there's a blow up Santa in the background, so it's very enjoyable. And she's got experience of, because she works in a private school, and the kids go to the public school, so she's got experience of both of those. There we go. Yes, so that is all the questions. I've said get a good hat. Oh, there's something about phones. Hide that one. Sorry, putting up another message on there. Have a SIM card sent to you either in advance or have it ready for you when you arrive? Is something that I found handy, so you can be prepared and have your phone, because sometimes you're going to need a Spanish number, and we did, especially for. I can't remember why we needed it, but it was really important that we had a Spanish number. So it was something to do with the car breaking down, I think.
A lot of so Social Security, evidently only take a Spanish number. And if you go in Autonomo, you need that to get yourself registered for the various messages. Like couriers only take a Spanish number. They won't phone or WhatsApp. And most official documents will only take a Spanish number. So that's a very good tip.
Mm-hmm. There we go. So let's wind up the show. We've been going for 1 3/4 hours. We've broken the record, Chris. Congratulations.
Yay!
Yeah.
It's 12 o'clock on a Saturday. I thought I was going to have to quickly nip and get a beer now, but if we were going any closer.
Absolutely, yes. And there's rumour that me and Chris are appearing at a festival in September. So I'm not going to quash those rumours. We'll tell you about that on a later date.
Yeah,
we're not going to be on the main stage though.
Apparently, say that never agree to things at 9 o'clock on a Thursday night when you've had a glass of wine. That's
There we go. So let's say a massive thank you to everybody on the chat, everybody who's watching, who hasn't even been on the chat. You've been fantastic, everybody. Thanks for all the questions, and a big thank you once again to Chris.
Cheers,
for being
guys.
Awesome. And next week, as I said on the live show, we're going to have 3 guests on. We're going to be chatting about buying property in Spain. So there's lots of top tips for you. We're going to have an expert, as I say, Matthew Wood. He's a lovely estate agent, an honest estate agent. There you go. Is that rare? We'll find out next week. And we've also got a money expert who talks about the best way of getting your ensuring that you've got the good exchange rate, and also a property photographer who can probably give you some other hints about what happens when you're buying property. And so, yeah. Oh, Jason says, don't forget my prize, please, from last week. Have you sent that?
It's on
one
its
off?
way. It's on its way,
way,
Jason. It's on the slow boat. So also, anybody who hasn't received their prize, just let us know. We have all gone out. Yogi's, yours went out, so let us know. But they've all gone out. If you don't receive it, let us know.
There we go. And there we go. So 9 o'clock next week if you're in the UK or Ireland, 10 o'clock if you're in Spain, 4 o'clock in the morning if you're in New York. I'll let you work it out wherever you are. And don't forget, YouTube Yoga YouTube channel. Get yourself some free yoga. I know it's a bit warm at the moment to be doing anything like that, but yeah, you can do it with your aircon on inside the house. And don't forget the Patreon site where you can support YouTube Spain or buy me a coffee. And that's it. Thanks everybody for tuning in. Let's get that music on. Peace and love and goodbye to you all. There we go. I need to get the music on. Let's start the dance.